Hi, my name is Natasha. I'm just going to do a quick video on a lesson rationale on a couple of lessons I did for ESL grade 2. So ESL, or English as a Second Language, is a program offered for students who come from other countries who don't speak English and it's not their native tongue. So the goal of ESL is to have well-planned, systematic instruction and support that will enable students to speak English more fluently and further their education and be just able to function in society. So, because lots of these students who are coming from other countries have a really hard time fitting in and understanding everything. So ESL is a separate program that kind of helps students get a little further and are able to communicate and excel in class if they take ESL. So ESL is kind of a really good program. So for ESL in Alberta right now, there's currently no program of studies for elementary. So I adapted the high school one for my lesson. In the future, I'll probably use language arts program of studies and the high school one combined to form my GLOs and SLOs. So ESL is organized into 5 levels. For my lesson plans on fairy tales for grade 2, I chose to focus on levels 1 and 2 because I kind of feel like that's where the students might be more at. So level 1 is intended for students who are acquiring literacy for the first time and who have significant gaps in their previous schooling for English. So they're having a very hard time with English. They're on the lower level of the scale. For level 2, it's the next one up. It is intended for students who have little or no experience to English prior to entering Alberta schools. So they're a little bit better at speaking English, but they still have a hard time. So obviously in my lessons I have a lot of variation and differentiation because I need to make my lessons, the lesson plan, applicable to both levels because not all students obviously are going to be at the same page, and we want to further the education and not hold some students back. So yeah, so that's something that I had to deal with. In ESL, there are 4 GLOs, followed by the SLOs. For my lessons, I chose the first GLO, which is students will use spoken and written English to gather, interpret, and communicate information. This GLO fit very well with the age group I was working with and what level I think the students will be at. So for my first lesson, we looked at Jack and the Beanstalk, and so we had that very first GLO, and then we had the SLO to define key vocabulary. Because often, students who don't know English, they don't really know all the words that in the story, or they can't, and so it's very important to break things down and to define this key vocabulary for them. So that's why I chose this GLO and this SLO, because it's really important in ESL and just learning English and just being able to understand the story. Because if you don't know what a bean is or what a beanstalk is or what a giant is, it's kind of hard to understand the whole story. So that's kind of the idea of reading a fairy tale and then getting the students to define and understand the key vocabulary. To do this, we did it as a group. We also did it individually as they worked in their workbooks. That was something for me to assess after, a formative assessment, just to look at and see who's struggling and who gets it and who can maybe speak it clearly, like can speak English and understand and communicate orally, but who has a hard time writing it down, because that's also part of the GLO. So students need to be able to do it both ways. So I address that in my lessons, and I also have different worksheets for the different levels because, again, this lesson is for levels 1 and 2, so they need to have 2 separate worksheets because they're at 2 different levels, and yeah, you need to play to both. A couple of classroom management strategies, obviously, to deal with the different levels is that I would address the topic as a group so we could work together through it, and then also the second level could also help the level 1s understand it a little more clearly if we address it as a group at first, because then they might not be so shocked and so afraid when they're first thrown at it. So we did it as a group, and then we worked together, and then so for classroom management, it's very important to have clear instructions and control of your group, and to use low key and high key to bring your students' attention. So a couple of low-key things that I would probably embed in my lesson is just maybe a name if someone's acting up, or a tap on the desk or a shoulder, or a teacher look, or like just quiet wait time to wait for that answer or wait for them to listen. Because in ESL it's extremely important that they hear the instructions or see the instructions, because otherwise they won't know what to do. And so it's very important. And just to hear someone talking in English and understanding is also part of this GLO. So they have to listen to the story and to be able to complete the task. So your students need to be listening, and so you need to have good time management and classroom management, and make sure that that is happening. Another strategy is that after we work as a group, then the students will work with people at their levels. So the tables in the classroom are already set up this way, so the students who are on level 1 will all work together, and the students who are at level 2 will all work together.